can't go out. I'm sick.
Boo, you whore.
Sup, it's Sydney, and yes, you did read this title correctly. I did, in fact, get tested for that thing that rhymes with Barona Cyrus. Do you know what? YouTube doesn't allow me to say it, so I'm just gonna name it Noah Cyrus because it kind of rhymes, you kind of get the same vibe, and like... I know that's her sister, but whatever. Obviously, I did not expect to be in this position, and I feel like this video needs a huge, fat, juicy disclaimer. I have actually been social distancing since March, like genuinely following all of the rules. I've been heating up my food, wiping down surfaces, even though the CDC just really said it can't be on surfaces for that long, but I was doing that ish. I've been doing the whole shebang, and I know then you're probably like, well, why did you have to get tested? But that's all gonna be addressed in this video. But the other thing that I feel like is really important to address is the fact that I am not trying to undermine the work of the CDC, of these doctors and nurses, of all of these first responders that are doing amazing things. I just happen to have a not so great experience that I feel like is important to share with you guys so that other people can understand the misconceptions and like real experience of what's actually going on. Does that make sense? I understand and support all of these cautionary procedures that are happening. It's just unfortunate that my experience sucked. The sickness. I woke up on Saturday and I felt like trash. At first I thought it was because I had been working out a lot the previous week and I thought it was just general soreness, or maybe I had tweaked something in my body because it was just acting the frick up. And then on Sunday night, things escalated. And when I say escalated, I mean me during the final lap on Mario Kart at Coconut Mall, like zoom. Suddenly, your homegirl had a fever. Her neck literally did not move. It was so stiff. I was fatigued. All of my muscles ached literally everywhere. Like if you would ask me where does it hurt, I would point to my entire freaking body. I had been having some prolonged urinary issues, but with all of these other symptoms, it only got worse. Monday night rolls around, it's like Coconut Mall Lap 3 on crack. I am just not thriving out here, people. And so of course, since I'm the fakest adult ever, I was like, Mom, do you think you could make me a doctor's appointment so I don't have to talk to the people on the phone? So Queen Pamela calls up the doctor's office, just my regular doctor's office that I've been going to for literally my whole life, and explains all of my symptoms, including my fever, all the prolonged ones when they started, that sort of thing. My doctor's office lets her know that they actually want to see me in person. They feel that doing this over the phone wouldn't be great, so they ask if I can come in the following day at 2 p.m., which obviously we said yes to because literally what am I doing? I didn't have a life before, and I definitely don't have a life dying on the couch now. After that phone call, I was a little bit on edge because I knew that they were probably gonna make me take the Noah Cyrus test unless I got my fever under control, because that's just kind of standard procedure in my area. Where I live, there actually hasn't been a lot of cases, so therefore we have actually a surplus of testing kits, which I know is very weird in comparison to other areas, and I kind of wonder why they aren't sending the extra testing kits elsewhere, but that's none of my business. So I'm laying on the couch contemplating my fate and whether or not they're gonna stick something down my throat and gag me with it, or stick something up my nose and poke my brain with it. And that was not a fun thought process. I woke up Tuesday morning, the day of my appointment, at around 8:30, and I had slept on the couch the previous night because I literally just could not make it up the stairs to my bed. I then decided that it would be a good idea to take some Advil, and this is what I had been kind of doing throughout the previous 2 days. A few hours after taking the Advil, I was feeling a lot better, and I still didn't feel great, and I had all of these other weird symptoms, but it definitely did its job in reducing my fever. So whenever I went to the doctor's appointment at 2 p.m., I actually didn't have a fever at the time. The visit, you know?
like, to the doctor?
My mom and I are wearing our masks and everything when we get out of the car. We approach the doors of the doctor's office, and immediately after entering, someone has one of those little temperature gun things and is taking our temperatures. And we both ring up normal. So then we proceed to enter the facility. Something that wasn't explained to us was that if you had had a fever in the past X amount of hours or had taken medicine to reduce a fever, you were not supposed to enter the facility. And we didn't know this, obviously, because one, they didn't tell us that on the phone when my mom had explained the symptoms that I was having, including a fever, and two, because the lady at the front door didn't ask that. She just took our temperatures and was like, all right, get in, losers. We're not going shopping. We're gonna take a urine test. With the exception of our temperatures being taken and everyone wearing masks and like basically no one being in the facility, the doctor's appointment proceeded as normal. Then the nurse was explaining to me that I was going to need to have a urine test, and I've never had a urine test before. The closest I've ever got is like making someone spell the word I cup in 2nd grade. So naturally, because I was nervous and didn't want to like get stage fright and not be able to pee like a normal human being while all these nurses are waiting for me, I was asking a lot of questions. I was like, oh, which cups is it again? And the nurse just rudely pointed and was like, that one. And I was like, there's like 7 vials and cups, like which one, lady? She was really inexplicably rude, and I was like, okay, maybe she's just like had a long day, like that's completely fair. But anytime I asked a question, she just kind of snapped at me.
Cups are right there. Do you have to wipe with that after, like, don't you know?
And I was like, oh, I don't know. I meticulously followed the instructions that she had given me, and I peed, so. Yay for Sydney's kidneys. And then because I'm an awkward little inexperienced human being, I'm just grabbing my pee samples after I wash my hands, of course, and all that stuff, exited the room, and then took them to the nurse and was like, is this enough? And she was like,
yeah.
I was sent back into the room to wait for the doctor, and I was feeling moderately good about myself. Like, yes, queen, you really did just pee in a cup, even though it did just take you like 5 minutes. That is until I hear 2 nurses outside of my door gossiping about me. They were saying things like,
oh my god, how did she even get in here if she had a fever? She took Motrin a few hours ago, so of course she doesn't have a fever right now. She shouldn't have been allowed in here. Why can't some people just follow the procedures?
And I was just sitting there next to my mom trying to hold back tears because I literally felt like an outside alien. And I started to feel really guilty, even though it wasn't my fault that they told me to come in and they didn't immediately test me like they were apparently supposed to. And then the doctor comes in, and she's very pleasant, and she's basically explaining to me that we are going to send my 2 urine samples to the lab at the hospital to be tested for a urine culture test. She also explains that because of how times are right now, they're not sending anyone over to the hospital to get blood work or any other sort of labs unless they have a fever that lasts for over 4 days. Then finally, cherry on top of the sundae, she lets me know that yes, I will have to go around the back and get tested for no-Osiris. I'm trying to play it off like, oh yeah, like that's totally fine, I understand your procedures, like I expected that to happen, when internally I'm like, the testing. I was taken to the testing facility, which was right outside of the doctor's office around the back under a tent. I was sat down in a chair and then given 2 forms. The testing lady explained that the first was a background sheet, just things about no-Osiris, you know, how many hit albums she has. And then it's broken down into 3 categories. What should I do while I wait for my result? What should I do if I test positive? And what should I do if I test negative? And then this is the other sheet. It's basically just a big table on here. And this is supposed to be the no-Osiris close contact checklist. So according to this paper, close contact is defined as being within 6 feet of someone for a period of 10 minutes or more. You're meant to fill out when you started feeling sick, and then all of the people's contacts that you've come in close contact with as per their definition. Then she let me know that they were going to be conducting the shove up your nose version of the test, which I was actually kind of pleased about because the throat one sounded worse to me. How I can best describe it is they take this long plastic looking thing with a spoolie on top. It kind of reminded me of like an extended mascara brush, if you will. I thought the top was gonna be more like a cotton swab, but that wasn't the feeling I was getting in my nose. It felt like more of a mascara brush top. They shove it all the way up your nose canal until it gets to like here-ish / to where it gets to where it's super uncomfortable and makes you involuntarily cry. And then they leave it there for 10 whole seconds. 10 agonizing seconds. And then they take it out and you're done. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask me questions about my testing experience, and it seems as though the majority of people are curious as to if it hurt and did it feel like it was touching my brain. Personally, I don't really think that it hurt. It definitely didn't feel good. Honestly, it really wasn't bad. It was just highly uncomfortable. The whole poking your brain sentiment is something that I can kind of get behind because I feel like it was really far up there. I mean, they go until you start crying. Afterwards, she took the mascara wand of death and put it in one of those biohazard bags and then informed me that my test results should be back either Friday or Monday. She also reassured me that every single person that she's tested has come back negative and that they would call me as soon as they had the results, so I really shouldn't be worried. But I was kind of worried. It's not that I felt that I had it, but suddenly the idea was put into my head after the test. On this handy dandy sheet under what should I do while I wait for my result, it says self-isolate to your home. If you live with others, self-isolate in a private room and use a private bathroom if possible. So that meant that I had to live in the basement. The isolation. Interact with others as little as possible. That little bullet point was like a bullet to my heart because I just started feeling so terrible. Mentally, I was gone after reading that. Physically, I'm already at my lowest point, and now you stick me in the basement in a cold, dark area with no one to talk to. Sweetie was not doing well. I stayed in the basement alone for multiple nights and only had interaction with others whenever one of my family members would bring me down a plate of dinner and sit it 6 feet away from me. And while I was down there, my physical state only got worse. My fever ended up lasting for 3.5 days. I wasn't granted any medication from the doctors because of the times that we're in right now and they wanted to get my wooOoOoo test back first. I could hardly move. My fever had increased from its previous low grade to a 102.4. I couldn't even sit up, much less stand up, because every time I tried to do so, my vision would go super, super blurry and I felt like I was going to faint. Needless to say, it was not fun, and the only thing that got me through was Avatar: The Last Airbender. And TBH, it felt like the Fire Nation was attacking my whole freaking body, but that's besides the point. The phone calls. My mom isn't normally a Karen, but in this situation she was kind of a Karen, but I also kind of supported her being a Karen because I felt like the doctors weren't really listening to me. And so she told me that the best way to get my results back and get my questions answered as fast as possible was to bother them every single day via the phone. Wednesday, dialed them up and there was no news yet, which was exactly what I expected, and they proceeded to let me know that they would call me whenever my results were back for both the urine culture test and the wooOoOoo test. On Thursday when I called and asked about my urine test, the lady on the phone was very confused and said that the system was acting weird, but that my doctor wanted to talk to me about a few things and was going to be calling me later on that afternoon. But then come later that afternoon and later that night and the next day, and I had no call from my doctor. Friday I woke up and was actually feeling a lot better, but I was feeling really discouraged because it was approaching midday and I still hadn't gotten any of my test results back, and if I didn't get them back that day before the labs and everything closed, I would have to wait until Monday to get them back. So I decided to embody the Karen character myself and call the doctor's office and once again ask about my test results. The nurse who picked up this time was really, really nice and trying to be very helpful, but I could tell that she was confused. But she did tell me that my No Osiris test came back negative. And I was like, yo, this is freaking great. Why didn't you call me though? Then after having a baby 2-second celebration in my brain, like, yeah, freaking No Osiris. I asked about my urine test and she said, oh yeah, your STD test came back negative. And I said, STD test? So I was like, oh, I didn't realize there was an STD test being done. My doctor told me that I was going to be having a urine culture test and that they were going to send my samples to the lab. If you can't tell, medical terms, even the most basic ones, are way out of my wheelhouse, so even just coming up with the mental capacity to say urine culture test was like groundbreaking for me. The nurse takes a minute to herself and is like, let me check my system, and then comes back and tells me, oh, it's not in the system. Like I said, she was very nice and polite and helpful, so at this point she says, do you know what, I'm just gonna call you back. I don't really know what's going on. I wasn't on shift this day, so let me ask the other nurses who are working right now and see if we can get this sorted out. After like 30 minutes, she calls me back and explains the situation that happened behind the scenes without my knowledge at all whatsoever. She said that allegedly, when my 2 urine samples got sent over, they forgot to label them, so the hospital, when they received them, threw them out. Okay, so the entire reason I came to the doctor's office was just thrown out, and then no one bothered to call me or tell me about my other test. So then the nurse tells me, oh, one of the other nurses actually did call your mom yesterday and explain the entire situation. They didn't call my mom, but also, I am now over the age of 18, which means that this type of medical stuff should be going through me. Genuinely, I think it was an honest mistake and I just had bad luck in this situation, but like, what the frick? But at this point, I was like, frick it, I don't have No Osiris. I'm done with this. This is so confusing to me. I said, thanks girl, peace out. I'm sick of watching Avatar in the basement by myself. I want to watch it upstairs. Long story short, I don't know why I randomly got sick. I have no idea what the other symptoms were. I was not very pleased with the procedures that my doctor's office followed, but I also felt like I was kind of an outlier in this situation and that they are doing good things, but unfortunately my experience was not amazing. I hope that you guys learned something about what's going on in this world from my personal experience. All of my heart goes out to anyone that knows someone that does have this or has some other condition that maybe is not being dealt with normally because of what's going on. Girl, I freaking feel for you. If you're waiting for your test result or in isolation, you can get through this. I promise that this all will come to an end eventually if we just kind of stick together and beat up No Osiris.
Yeah.
I love you all so much. I hope this isn't controversial. I just wanted to share what happened to me. And I know that other people have very different experiences, and I hope that no one's pee got thrown out besides mine. Bye.